taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Augmented Reality Podcast for July 4th, 2020. Big holiday in the United States today. So glad you're with us if you're in the United States, and hope you have a great day celebrating today. And welcome. So this is the Saturday edition of the show. We're going to dive deep today into some Cyberpunk stuff. We've got some other gaming news to talk about as well, and we also have a special guest today. We have Max Derrat, fellow YouTuber.
Shalom. God is good. God is great. Sorry.
Friend of the channel. He's been on the show before, but not for a while, so I'll give him an opportunity to introduce himself. But he has a YouTube channel and a podcast called the Differently Wired Podcast, which Cybsidian is regularly a guest on. But yeah, welcome, Max, and why don't you introduce yourself? There's probably people here who have never heard your voice before, so why not just introduce yourself and what you do?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here. The party can now begin. Yeah, I just, as Shinity said, I do a lot of gaming content on my own channel. You can find me at Max Derrat. That's Max, to the maximum. And then Derrat is spelled D-E-R-R-A-T. If you're a fan of great stories in video games, like some of the more profoundly intellectual stories, like let's say Nier Automata, Deus Ex, Metal Gear Solid, and you like deep dives into the lore of games, make sure you go over and check my channel. And also, as Shinity said, there's a heavy bent towards mental health coverage, providing a calm, safe place for people to congregate and talk to each other about their mental health issues. If any of that sounds interesting to you, come and say hi. And if you're put off by the fact that you see like some guy with the Simpsons avatar with the yellow skin, do not worry. I do not have hepatitis. I do not have jaundice. It's just the way I choose to live my life.
I identify as a Simpson. Well,
yes, Simpsons kin.
Simpson kin. Yes, there we go. I should probably also say hi to Cyb, who is here as well. He's here.
Yeah, he's all right.
As always, but y'all know him already. So now you do the Differently Wired podcast. You have a particular interest in dealing with autism and the spectrum there, right? And that's one thing that, as many probably know, that's something that Cyb definitely has some experience with. And so he has a lot to say there. We won't dive too deep into that right now, but yeah, definitely check out the Differently Wired podcast. You can hear that on Max Derrat's channel. And like I said, Cyb is a regular over there. So yeah, lots of great gaming news to talk about today, and some not so great gaming news. If you're listening live, please say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast, as many as we can, as many as we see. Super chats, of course, basically guaranteed to be read as long as they conform to basic standards of human decency. Don't forget to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and it tells us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. Okay, let's get the bad news out of the way first, and this is something Cyb has been particularly wanting to talk about. We lost a legend this past week, sadly, to mental health related issues. Reckful, one of the pioneers of online game streaming. So
yeah, the Twitch, their official post about it was that he was a streaming pioneer and helped propel the whole industry forward. The communities he cultivated in the games he played has forever changed by his relentless pursuit of excellence. He was somebody who suffered, obviously, from mental illness, on top of being just like somebody who saw what Twitch and what online streaming could be, the heights that it could get to, and like went after that and helped to formulate a lot of things. So he's, for those of you who don't know, he's one of the primary proponents and creators of the concept of you put some money in and you have your chat message appear, as special as and unique from the regular chat messages. So like the super chats and the other stuff. He was He was obviously, he played a lot of WoW. He played a lot of couple other games, and he was really kind of helped like build whatever community he was in. You usually brought a large following along with it. He was quite entertaining. He knew a lot of people, like from I believe it. I believe he was quite familiar and close with a lot of the top people in the industry right now. Like I believe he knew Ninja quite well. I believe he knows Asmongold knew him quite well. These are all people who they run the kind of system, and so it's rough seeing him go in the way that he did. One of the last streams he did was really brutal in the sense that people were just like ripping on him and trashing him constantly, and it reminds us all to like watch what we say. Most of those were you know positively ripping in the sense that these people so Asmongold explained it really well on his stream the other day. He's like when you watch somebody and you're constantly in their stream and you're in their stream for years, right? It gives you this sense of familiarity. And then it gives you the idea like you are out with your best friend, and you're making jokes and you're making comments and you're using dark humor with your friends, right? If you're the type of person to do that. Some of these people that were posting those comments obviously were thinking that they were doing this and that it was okay because it was like, oh no, we're just riffing, we're just having a good time, I don't actually mean it, but then there were some people who did. There were some people who hated him. There's people who hate a lot of streamers because of perceived weaknesses or mental illness, right? Like we look at Boogie, and again, Boogie is somebody who's got got his own problems, and he deals with them. He's also he also has some demons that he has to deal with. But going out of your way to message these people and try to make their life more miserable intentionally is obviously wrong, and it's obviously a big problem. And in a lot of these cases, it really is something that really needs to be dealt with, and we need to like see some change here. And so there was some big events that happened on the weekend. Ninja apologized to Alinity. Alinity tried to apologize to I dislike people who take this and try to turn it into their own propaganda or advertising or marketing. And there are definitely some people that really seem to be doing that. But again, it's like we don't need to make the internet a worse place by constantly trying to call everybody out all the time. One of the things I think would be good would be to know when to like ignore people and things that either are doing this in one way or the other, or if somebody's being a piece of garbage online, then it's like one of the better things to do is instead of like trying to like call for their their public beheading, it's like maybe we should just like ignore them and just like move on. And because this was in the news in a couple other places, and it was just really really crazy. So as far as his passing, they had a bunch of vigils in the game. Some of them are still going on today. It's been a couple of days now, and it's like, wow, like people are still showing up to these vigils and still doing them. And I think, I think that shows the strength of the community. When it wants to be positive, it can be positive. And I think that it's probably a good idea that people try to see that and learn from that what they can. So yeah, it's it's sad and it's rough.
It is sad.
I won't go into it kind of the way he went, because it was really rough. And no, he had a lot of people who were watching him and trying to help him, and he was getting help. But this is one of these cases where it's like this was a very quick thing, very quick, very very like unexpected, and yeah, it's rough when that happens, because there was another YouTube personality a few years ago, somebody who knew Angry Joe quite well, or Angry Joe knew him quite well. He did guides on how to like translate Japanese games and stuff, and he kind of went quickly the same way. And one of the paramedics told his wife, I think it was at the time, said, don't judge people based off their worst moment in their life. So
No, absolutely. I can tell you, as somebody who has struggled with mental health and struggled with deep depression, um, yeah, it's you start to think and do things you wouldn't normally do, and yeah, you just need help at that point. You definitely don't need to be shoved down. It's a reminder that mental health issues are, I mean, don't take it lightly. If it's something that you struggle with or somebody that you know struggle with, like, don't panic and freak out, but seek help, offer help, and especially now with all the isolation that's going on, definitely try to find ways to get connected. Try to find resources to help. I know, like,
a lot of people don't realize that the suicide hotline is there not just for people who are being suicidal, but it's also there for people who are dealing with somebody who's regularly suicidal. Somebody who you have a friend and they're constantly like, doing stuff or saying things or being very, self-damaging. You can call those helplines and get advice from them too.
mm-hmm.
Like, they're not just there for those people in need. They're also, they're also there for the people who are their support network, because as much as a suicide helpline can help that person when they're when they're up against the darkness, they can also help you because you're the person who's kind of that first line of defense. They're really a second or a third line of defense for that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, utilize that. There's a lot of them that have, like, they can walk you through how to, like, help calm down somebody. They can definitely help you, like, deal with the stress of it. So Max, we had like, you deal with, like, people who call into the show, and you regularly deal with people who are kind of at the, sometimes that are at the end of their ropes as well. Any advice you got for this?
Well, I'll work up to that. But I just sort of want to address the whole situation first. I didn't know who Reckful was up until a couple days ago, and unfortunately, that tends to be the thing that happens when tragedies like this happen. Once somebody's gone, everybody suddenly becomes aware of their existence, and everybody congregates together and tries to preserve the memory. It's just a shame that, like Saib said about all the congregations of people and WoW and these vigils, it's a shame stuff like that couldn't happen before the guy passed away, or anybody passes away, really. So yeah, it's like Ash just brought up, the isolation and the stuff with the quarantine. It's kind of got everybody going crazy right now. It seems like everybody, whether it's in real life or on the internet, everybody's just trying to call each other out and bring everybody down. And it's a real shame. And it's stuff like that can really, has got people coming to me and saying, dude, I don't really like the state of the world right now, and my mental health is deteriorating. And in times like these, I try to remind people, look, I know how tempting it is to let the darkness sort of wash over you, but you got to try and look at these things objectively. It's not all bad. There is a lot of good stuff. And believe me, when I heard about all this, I went and did my research. I found out about people like Asmongold, who I've never heard of before because I'm not a part of the Twitch community. But I saw all these videos of people streaming WoW right after Reckful died. And I know a little bit about WoW. These videos of like hundreds of people congregating in these key locations in World of Warcraft, whether it's in the Eastern Kingdoms or Kalimdor or wherever. And people, even in PvP servers where, people of different races, where normally people of different races would be killing each other, you got the Tauren and the humans and the undead and the night elves all kneeling in Stormwind. And
so there was a funny event that I saw when I logged in. I don't have an active account, but you can make a burner account for free, and hop into the game, play up to like level 10 or something like that. Anyways, you can run into there's no limitation on like where you can go, and like, so I ran into the city, and there was a troll who had come into the human city, and there was a guy there being a dick who was trying to kill the troll. And in moments like this, it's like not the time or the place, and most everybody was like, dude, can you calm down, stop that, we're trying to like have a moment, let the troll is here to like pay their respects, let them pay their respects.
Yeah.
And what happened was that a chain of priests who have this ability to mind control other players, which then turn them like it turns them from red enemy to green enemy that you can't attack. They were they were chain using mind control on the troll so that the troll couldn't be attacked by the by this other player. And it was like that was that was funny, because it's like the troll was like, yeah, normally in this scenario it's like, no, stop mind controlling me, but in this case it's like, no, we're mind controlling you so that you can sit on the
so he can have his moment. It was actually really moving, and I never expected to be moved like that watching a World of Warcraft stream, but again, it just goes to show some of the positivity, some of the real community feel that gamers can create. And I wish that more media would focus on reporting that instead of always talking about us like we're this toxic bunch of people.
The thing about World of Warcraft, I haven't played that game in about a decade, but what I do fondly remember about it is just how strong the community ties are there. Like when you play that game and you join a guild and you talk to these people every day, you really do form strong bonds with these people. And when you find out like somebody that you really care for passes away, people will go out of their way to get on the computer and go and pay their respects. And like Ash said, it's stuff like that you have to focus on and promote. Because as much as, negativity gains clicks, positive actions can have the same amount of power. And I think what we should take from all this is not so much just all like focusing on the terribleness of the gaming community in this scenario and how it probably drove Reckful to do what he did, but instead just see this unique moment for what it is and show how remarkable the gaming medium can actually be.
Absolutely. I mean, there was some negativity, obviously, that might have contributed to this, and we need to be mindful of that for sure. But he
suffered from a manic depressive state, so he would go from like super positive to super in the guts, and like I know how that feels. It's like you have a great day, it's like an amazing day, but then you have just a following low where it's like it goes deep into the dark, and I mean I don't have to deal with it regularly, but this guy and many other people suffer from that and other things like bipolar and stuff like that. They do have to deal with it every single day, and that can certainly be rough.
Right. It sucks.
And again, just due to some other news that has come out recently, I want to encourage people to go out, get help, but also be careful about what kind of meds you get on, because I mean, Ash, some meds are. They could be. I've had my own difficulty with meds for stuff, and I mean, good Lord, mine were terrible. I think you have a worse experience with yours.
Well, mine were not great. It was when I was changing over to a better one was the worst period that I've had ever in my life, and that's when I had to take some time off from the channel. But it was that because I had to come off of the first one to go on to the second one. And it's been fantastic. It's been great. My life has been way better, but there was a period of 2 or 3 months where I was just in hell. But anyway, I don't want to make this about. But very good advice. Sharing. I mean, we do have to. Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, I feel like we need to move on. But I do want to encourage. I mean, if folks want to talk more about this, we have a Discord server available where you can talk about this if you want. And maybe, or even just connect and meet some people. We've had a lot of people saying that the community there has been helping them through this time of isolation, and it is really great every now and then when I'm feeling down to just hop on there, and it's been it's remained a very positive community. We're taking steps to keep it as a very positive community, but I'd also recommend you check out Max Derrat's channel, get involved with the community there. Even just, it helps to know that you're not alone if you're struggling with this stuff. It helps to know that there are other people and that there is, hope for having a good quality life, even when you have these kinds of struggles. So,
but there are millions of people that are seeing the state of the world right now, and they don't like it, and they are actively making attempts to try and create more positive communities, like Ash said. So please, if you're going through some stuff right now, reach out to people, have people surround you and keep their eye on you. And that way you can sort of let off steam and realize, hey, not everything is bad. And also, guys, I just recommend to you, if you have a gamer friend that's going through some stuff right now, share them the videos of the people in World of Warcraft going to these vigils. It's absolutely incredible, moving. It's one of the most powerful things I've seen in a long time.
It's mind-blowing. The sheer number of players gathered in one place for this was like I'm almost getting choked up just remembering it. It was mind-blowing how many characters there were there. How many people were just gathering to honor this guy. It's sad that that it happened, but it's very moving to see the response to it.
And here's to many more things like that from the gaming community in the future.
Absolutely. Hopefully we don't ever have to deal with this again. I mean, here's hoping that that everybody finds the help they need. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, sadly. And sometimes it just, like, again, with like bipolar and things like that, they're incredibly difficult to deal with, incredibly unpredictable. Sometimes sometimes we're going to lose people, and I definitely think it's I agree with, who was it? Was it Max? I think it was you that said we shouldn't judge people based on their worst moments. And
that was Side, but I agree.
Yeah, okay. I fully agree. And if something like this happens, it's easy to say, oh, you know what? Why would they do something like that? Well, I mean, maybe do some educating of yourself on mental illness if you find yourself thinking that.
I recently discovered that there's been that there's some drugs that are used for antidepressant and anxiety that are really, really dangerous. So like it's something that I want to dig into later. So this is a topic that we're hopefully going to try and kind of come at in a respectful and educated manner in the future. So anyways, kind of bouncing from this onto the closest related topic is the question of WoW and World of Warcraft and what Blizzard is doing. So Blizzard also responded to this. They're also stating that there's apparently some rumors going around that they'll include him as an NPC sometime soon. Blizzard has a habit of doing this.
Nice.
But they've also been, like, Blizzard itself and World of Warcraft has been rocked by a number of big things. There's been this whole method scandal with some of the worst things, accusations that you can make against a person. So there's been some stuff going on there. Again, I'm going to try and get some kind of a response to this sometime soonish. You need to come at these things from a very, very, very firm standpoint and an educated standpoint. Otherwise, you risk doing more harm than good. However, we are going to have another guest on next week. One of the world's foremost collectors in World of Warcraft, who is also an autistic, and is doing something that nobody else has ever done in the history of WoW before. So we're going to have him on next week, hopefully, as long as there's no other big surprises. This will also come about 2 days after the big announcement that Blizzard has prepared. So Blizzard's doing a big announcement on the 9th. We're probably going to hear, it's mostly probably going to just be about Shadowlands. I doubt they're talking about any other games, but we're gonna kind of cover that from that perspective and look into that. The one thing that this has kind of shown me is that World of Warcraft does have a good sense of community, and while again you don't always have to be an active subscriber, you can partake in that community in some pretty fun ways. So we're gonna have some fun, like, events coming up here, probably in the fall, because right now the game is kind of garbage. But it does have a very big expansion coming in, and as soon as that patch comes in, we're going to start hosting some events, because some of these events I want to do, like a Naked Gnome run, and some other stuff. These are fun events that have been done many times before, and so we're gonna just kind of play around and see what we can see what we can do with this for fun. There's also some other games that you can look into if you're having fun or want to have fun with our community. There's seems that right now Sea of Thieves is really making a huge comeback. Like they've been gradually growing steam. No, I messed up how you say that. Anyway, they've been getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's some pretty fun stuff that's been going on there too. So we're gonna try and have more active in-game events in games in the future. So this is something that, please join us. And again, you don't need an active subscription for this. You can pop in and we'll find some ways to do this. And again, probably later in the fall. But we are going to be paying attention to this more. Because this expansion really has been showing some good legs. They're revamping a lot of stuff in the game from scratch, and really doing some unique stuff that will make the game far more friendlier to new people, as well as like actually better overall in the form of gameplay and stuff like that. So yeah, this is something that we're going to be kind of keeping our eye on, and big announcement is coming up sometime on the 9th. So keep your ear to the ground for that. We're gonna like get into that and kind of jump into that. So from there, we've got some other fun news coming out of what do you want to cover next, Ash?
Well, you know what? Let's cover we've got a couple of smaller stories. Let's hammer those out, and then we'll jump into the Cyberpunk stuff. So okay, go ahead.
So UK gaming, in the UK gaming world, the British House of Lords, whom I actually have met some of these people. I gotta say, I spent a few days with one lord in particular, and I won't say exactly whom, but she was pretty good. I think she earned her title. She spent her life going into dangerous situations in dangerous places, using nothing but her status as a House of Lord to bring aid and help to people in need. And this was often in the middle of like war territory. So she would drive a semi truck herself into war territory because she had this like political immunity that even small like drug lords feared. It's like you don't try. This is not somebody you try and kidnap to ransom off, because all you'll end up getting is like a sky full of helicopters and bullets raining down in your direction. So this is somebody who is very cool, very interesting to meet this person. And I've done a lot of like digging into their background, and yes, they actually earned their position. I don't think most of the House of Lords have earned those positions. Most of those are just like, familial like things that are passed down from generation to generation. The concept is for the most part pretty good, but it needs some improvement, obviously. And at any rate, they basically do have some usage in the law, and basically they got the gaming report that had been going through the political system there. They looked at all of the information from this report, and you've been hearing it. This is the report that you've been hearing about for months and months and months now. But yeah, they got the report, they looked at it, and they said immediately, you need to quantify all in-app random purchases, so microtransactions for like gift bags or card packs or chests with loot boxes, random chests with rewards, anything that even remotely encompasses that concept. Period. You need to ban and put those as adult gaming only. That was their reaction. What this does in this particular case is this gives the British Parliament the ability to pass this law without debate. Like normally,
because the Lords recommended it.
Because the Lords recommended it, and one of their recommendations is that there's no downside to doing this. So there's no unforeseen consequences of doing this activity of doing this. If you wanted to ban cars, right? Because like gas fueled cars, because you want to encourage like the selling of like electrical cars. that would take a very long time in any government and probably would be stopped because not everybody has access to electric cars or an electric car grid that could, run off of that system. So it would take years and years and years of going through the political system. They would have to set up a route on how to handle it, and then they would have to tackle it very logically, and they would have to make sure that it was kind of like a slow phasing out, right? In this case, the House of Lords said, we've looked at this. There is no jobs that will be punished, stopped, or demeaned by immediately doing this, meaning that there's no like, if you're going to ban something, you're going to ban the orange soda tomorrow. It's like there are some jobs that would suffer from banning orange soda tomorrow in parts of the world. There is no jobs that would suffer, none that were of worth from their perspective, that would suffer from an immediate loss of this industry of cutting out loot boxes and saying, nope, you're done now.
Yes, because even a whole bunch of detached politicians from the UK Parliament are able to realize that nobody likes loot boxes except for EA.
These aren't politicians. They're lords. So they're like they actually. Yes, yeah, I know. It's a very weird concept. Even we're all Canadian here, and it's like even we're like kind of like, I don't really understand how this system works. But yeah, it's like basically they're kind of like a mix of like. Well, no, I can't really give it an example for it. It's a House of Lords.
It's like its own thing. It's like even Bell on his. I was watching Bellular, and he's in the UK, and he was like, these guys are kind of like a relic of the past, but they do have this influence. I thought we had.
You mean like the Queen?
We've got some relics. There's some stuff in our government system that's like even here in Canada that's like relics left over from British rule, and it's like, what the hell? Like even how like the politicians, when they applaud, they have to bang the table instead of actually clapping.
They can't clap. It's illegal for them to clap. They can get ousted for it, and it's like, okay, what?
Well, I heard, so at any rate, that it was because, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the rumor is that it's because you always had to keep one hand free in case you needed to draw your sword, which is, clearly a concern in modern day. But anyway,
in modern days, yeah. So this basically, with them giving this stamp of approval, it means that if they want to, the current existing government can fast track this thing almost immediately without any resistance really. And I mean, my message to the government is do it now, and then forward that report to every other Commonwealth country in the entire world. Do it now and come down on them like a hammer. Absolutely, without regret, come down on them and smash them, because the report, if you go through it, I mean, it would take like an hour just to go through the report. It's damning. They uncovered that these companies knowingly hire people who are experts in gambling addiction, like in helping people form gambling addiction, having them come in and design the systems in which they then sell to children. It's like, wow.
So Sive.
I'm detecting some sarcasm there. Well, except for the "it's disgusting" part.
Right.
Yeah, this is absolutely mental, and they need to, like, this seriously needs to come down. We've known this for a long time, and I've seen it, and I've even been a victim of it myself, of like getting into the microtransaction thing in other games, and it's like I had to hard uninstall stuff from my system just because it was just too tempting, because it's like, that drive is there, and it, like as not Asmongold, Heels versus Babyface, another YouTuber / ex-WoW player, or sort of current WoW player, who comments on this stuff. He talked about it this week as well. He talked about how he had suffered from gambling addiction, and he had wasted money, lots and lots of money, gambling it away on VLT machines. And I see it, I see it often too. Like, I'll see VLT machines, and I'll see people who are like, they'll blow through $2,000-$3,000 in a single night, and they lose everything, and then they have to get on the phone and call their family and say, sorry, I blew all the rent money and all the food money. We don't have any food for this week. It's like, what? Like, this stuff needs to stop. You know, I'm not in favor of banning gambling in general, but like a lot of these things should really be turned on and against the people who are doing this, because this is disgusting.
Just be honest
So-
about what you're doing. Don't try to sell a game like FIFA to kids where they're
Mhm.
like, is it FIFA where they have like
Yeah, it's
the slot
FIFA.
machine?
Yeah.
Yeah, to kids, to 10-year-old kids that are trying to get Lionel Messi on their team or something, and they
Yeah.
keep spending their their parents' credit cards. There's so much of that going on in the UK right now. And look, the UK is like my family hails from the UK. From what I understand, there's a lot of unnecessary government overreach there,
Mhm.
and I'm seeing this, I guess, as a positive byproduct of that. But yeah, anyways, just I'm glad, as you are, Side, that finally there's some pushback on this stuff, and hopefully it'll create a chain reaction where over here in North America we can see this stuff stopping soon.
It's insidious.
so-
I mean, if they're researching to find the maximum way to get people to spend the maximum amount of money, and there's, I mean, the psychological research on all of this stuff is well founded. Like, there's a lot of info on how people get addicted, and then if you turn around and leverage that to deliberately getting people addicted, I mean, this is why it's illegal to sell cigarettes to minors in most places, and I mean, if we're going to do that, we should definitely be careful of, how what's happening in games. And then, of course, there's always the argument of like, well, where are the parents? Well, hopefully, in most cases, they're involved and aware of these things, but there's some parents who just don't know what's going on in these games. It's like, oh, my kid wants a soccer game. At least he's not like killing hookers in GTA, and they don't know what's going on, right? What's that?
Which too many of them are already. I know,
Well,
like a whole
yeah.
bunch of 10-year-old kids that are playing GTA 5. It's like, why are you playing that game? There's literally full frontal male nudity in that game. Are you kidding me? Yeah,
But
it's not good.
that's why for us, like my kids and my wife are all playing this one particular game that they really love. I don't get it, but they really love it. But it does have these, I can see where it's designed to try and get you to buy stuff, to buy microtransactions. And I'm like, do you really enjoy this? But they really do. They enjoy the gameplay, but we have a zero tolerance, like, as far as microtransactions. It's just like, no, we don't buy things in these games. We'll buy you a game, but we don't. And so that's become normal for them. So I'm kind of glad that they're building up some resilience to that.
Yeah.
Because at first I was like, should we be letting them play this? But anyway, yeah, parents do need to be aware, but some of them just aren't. And
yeah, and I mean, it like, so there's a couple of things where it's like, instead of having an opt-out system, you should have an opt-in system. I think this should just like, I think they should come down so hard on this, and they should basically like, I mean, I think it can be done. They should tax all revenue based off of these purchases at like 105%. Do that tomorrow, and all of this stuff will just turn off immediately. And they'll just go back to regular old microtransactions of like, you want this guy? Here's how much he costs. It's $5. It's $10. That's what you get. Boom, done. Like, do that, please, for the ever living, like, everything. Just do that and be done with it.
Yeah.
Like, my goodness, it's just too much at this point. So, what we're probably going to see, hopefully, is that the government will act on this. They'll institute the ban, or they'll institute the changes that are needed. And tomorrow you'll see them basically copy over the Belgian system that they have over there, over to England. And they're just gonna, I suspect, my thought is this: they will continue to do this until it hits like mass market. So every country that bans it, they'll just turn off the systems and then integrate this other system, and they'll just do that, and they'll fight tooth and nail in every country available until there's only like a handful left. And and you're gonna see where all of the greediest like politicians are, where the I believe that our right to sell heroin to children is probably something that I think we can defend. It's
Sounds
like
like
you're gonna see that from a bunch of politicians. Now, yeah, I'm using a
American accent.
stereotypical American accent for that, but what I mean by that really is you're gonna see countries. You're gonna see a lot of European countries who are gonna hold out on this. You're gonna see a lot of Americans also hold out on this. And you're going to look at it and you're going to say, who's donating to your reelection campaign? And you're going to discover that it's going to be these companies. Because, yeah, this happens. In our own country, I saw something that was supposed to help, like, every Canadian. And the second that a particular politician got in control, that thing that was designed to help all the Canadians spend, take, like, $200 off of their monthly or their monthly or bi-monthly bills, I saw that go away instantly when I found out that the politician who did that was given like $20 million for his re-election campaign by those exact companies who take that money from Canadians. And it's just like, wow, you disgusting pieces of garbage.
Yeah, well,
and it's like you can't even tell anybody, because it's like I tried going to the press with it, and they're like, no, we're not interested. It's like, and it's just
this?
stupid.
Government corruption? Oh yeah, that's like background noise.
Yeah. Well,
sadly,
it's that, and it's like it's that, and that they're also owned by those companies. And then, as we've exposed here on this channel before, there are a lot of companies that are owned by other companies that are owned by other companies that are owned by other companies that call favors in from all of those companies whenever something they come up against gets in their way. So educate yourself.
So what Cybe is saying?
Look around.
What Cybe is saying is he had a story about the Liberals engaging in some sort of bad thing, and then he went to the CBC, and they're like, "Yeah, we can't do that, just cause."
Wait, the
government
owned
jokes that are probably going to go over most everybody's head.
CBC is our government owned, government funded media broadcaster, which is just a baffling concept to me. But anyway, let's not get into that. Let's talk about just a couple other things, and then we'll get to the Cyberpunk stuff, because I know a lot of you are here for that. So
Fallout.
Fallout TV show coming, based on. So this is interesting. We're curious to know your reactions. Dump them in the chat right now. I'll read as many as we can. But it is going to be on. It's an Amazon Studios show. They are working with Bethesda on it, and it's from the creators of Westworld. Joy and Nolan, what's their last name? Lisa Joy and Jonah Nolan, sorry. Those were their last names, Joy and Nolan. They will executive produce the series, and they say it's one of the greatest game series of all times. Each chapter of this insanely imaginative story has cost us countless hours. So I don't know if this is just kind of PR speak or if they are actually fans of the game, but if they are, that would be fantastic. They say they're incredibly excited to partner with Todd Howard and the rest of the brilliant lunatics at Bethesda to bring this massive, subversive, and darkly funny universe to life with Amazon Studios. So you had tweeted out, Cybe, please don't mess with the lore. If they're working with Bethesda, do you think that means that they will keep true to the lore?
No, I don't think so. I assume with much horrendous experience in this industry that they will probably make an absolute gong show of this and mess everything up. However, after having seen the success that Netflix had with The Witcher, maybe, just maybe, there's enough interest there to make a good product and to really try to make a good product. Now, I have been saying for a while that Bethesda needs to come up with the Fallout Bible 2.0. They need to set up a bunch of lore, released or unreleased. They need to take this and run with it. Make sure it's good, make sure it's well written, and actually run with it. My biggest concern over all of the games was that they didn't really have enough like concrete lore that they based everything off of, and that stuff was like unchangeable. They had way too many flex points in the lore where they just kind of like messed with stuff. I think their games have been good. Not obviously not like Fallout 3 was great for what it was and for what it offered and for the limitations of the tech that they were facing. That was probably about as great of a game as we could have gotten. The lore was pretty on point, and they had a couple of hiccups that they fixed with DLC. So I'm willing to slate that in post, looking back at it as a whole, that was a pretty great game. Fallout 4, like, just barely meets the standard for a great game. It there were a couple of major lore flubs that they threw in there, things that just didn't make sense. The whole ghoul situation with the kid and a bunch of other stuff that was just like really bad. It's like, dude, seriously, get your lore face on and stick with this stuff. Not only that, but they needed to they need, and this rolls into kind of like my thinking on labeling it just barely a great game, is that a great game really goes out of its way to set up new lore stuff for the future, right? If they really, really, really wanted to include the Brotherhood in an earlier version of their stuff, all they would have needed to have done in Fallout 4 was add a couple of entries where some scribe is like, I came across some old Brotherhood of Steel emblems. How is this possible? We never were out this far east until such and such a date. Looking into it, it looks as if there was something else going on here. That's all they would have needed to do in Fallout 4 to have that preset, the stuff that they did for 76. But because they weren't thinking that far ahead, it really fell, and then it really came across as disingenuous, as a cash grab, as all this other stuff and all these other problems that they have with this. And so they really need to have a lore set. And I think that I hope that they're taking this to heart, because this really, really should be done. Now, as far as Westworld goes, the first season was great. Second and third season were terrible. And I think that has to do with what they were kind of going for. They were trying to replicate a Game of Thrones-ish kind of experience, and they kind of like ran into a wall writing style because they were putting themselves in too many boxes. And I mention this because I think that they might actually do a good job with this. Not the people from Bethesda, the people from this studio. If they really understand the lore, and if they really understand the perspective of how they can tell a story, I think they'll actually be able to do a pretty darn good job. Because the world that's there, that they created for number one, the first Westworld, was right up their alley as far as being able to like you take the sets, you take the sets and a bunch of other concepts, and you build them correctly, and you'll get access to a concept that allows you to do a Fallout universe pretty successfully. It all happens underground, right? They've got the tone for some of the stuff right. It's just the thing that kind of screwed up with them was that everybody's immortal in Westworld, and they didn't like that holds them back from a story perspective. It's something that's pretty decent on paper, but it's one of those concepts that kind of like, when you're trying to port it to a TV series, it doesn't mesh as well. So my perspective of looking at this, I'm like, I think they can do this. I think they might be able to do this if they have some good writers that look at the lore and say, we're not going to screw with the lore. We're going to work within the confines of the lore, and we're going to do it right. Because unlike Westworld, it's like this really doesn't shackle us in a terrible way. This lore in the Fallout universe allows us to tell some pretty amazing stories. And I think and I hope that the story will center around a vault that runs into some problems. Probably kind of fairly early on in the cycle, so probably like first generation. So we'll probably see like pre-America, the pre-Fallout America, and then we'll see people rushing to the vaults. We'll see a whole bunch of build up for the war. Then once they're in the vaults, then they start running into vault problems. So, Max, what are your thoughts on where they could go with the story?
Just as long as they have Moira with her mustache, I'm sure I'll love it.
Moira with
but
a
no,
mustache?
yeah. Do you remember Moira
I
from
remember
Fallout
Moira.
3?
I don't remember her having a mustache.
Yeah, she has a mustache, man. If you look closely, there's a whole thing. Even when you nuke Megaton, I think that's the name of the city, and you go back and she has her face ripped off, she still has the damn mustache. People in the chat will know what I'm talking about. But yeah, just in regards to Fallout overall, I've always been much more of an Elder Scrolls guy, but I have played some Fallout. I have a general idea of how certain things work, but obviously Cyb has a better idea. I have sort of a different approach in regards to storytelling than I think Cyb has here. Like, it would obviously be great if they can make a Fallout TV series that keeps to the lore that also has a great story. But given the track record of how video games have been adapted to TV and to movies, I'd much rather they just try to focus on telling a good story first and then try to see where they can incorporate the lore into it. Because if you try to stick too much to the lore, that has the potential for you to be shackled in certain ways where you're not able to tell a better story. You know what I'm saying? But look, maybe there is some way where like the people that are producing and writing the series are actually fans of Fallout and they can do both at the same time. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Just the one thing that I'm wondering how they're going to deal with, because the Fallout series, even though it's not fantastical in the sense like Elder Scrolls is, there is sort of a hokey, fantastical element to the Fallout series that you sort of get with the Bethesda games. You know what I'm saying? Like with the mutants and the way that they're shaped and the way they come off and the factions and the way that they dress. I wonder if they're going to keep that identity for the show. And I'm just wondering if that's a good idea. Maybe it'll come across like ridiculous on TV screens, whereas it comes off just fine in games. Or will they go for a more realistic approach? I'm just not sure. It's too early to say, you know.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I guess there is always a risk of taking these fantastical creatures and making them look hokey.
I mean, they managed to do it okay with The Witcher and those monsters. Maybe they could do something really cool here.
I think that I agree that there's the potential for it to be really great, as long as they don't let too many outside influences infect it. Then it could be fantastic. I mean, the Fallout, like it's been bungled in its execution at times, but the Fallout universe, in my opinion, is fantastic. I love it. I love the retro futurism. I love the 50s aesthetic, the music, and just the what the world is all about in as far as the post-apocalypse. So yeah, I hope they do it well, and I hope that it's a good show that we can enjoy, because I do love Fallout, even though Fallout 76 was a debacle and there's criticisms about other things they've done. Anyway, I want to read some of the comments from the chat here about this. So Minute Repeater says, I'm not interested in anything Bethesda related. Nivazi says, Bethesda kicking my childhood memories yet again. I mean, maybe. Yeah, there's a lot of disinterest in this. Time Bean says, Fallout stuff now? Time for a pee break. Okay. Wow, lots of... not a lot of excitement.
People are still very angry and upset.
Cross Raven says, which Fallout is being adapted? That's very important. I would say, I hope they don't adapt a specific game. Like, I hope they come up with an original story, an original setting within the universe. Not an original, but like maybe a vault we haven't seen before, a location we haven't seen before. Separate it from the games a little bit. That would be my hope. That would be my preference. Obviously, like, it'd be great to see some callbacks to... it would be great. Man, if they got Liam Neeson in to play that character, the character he played in Fallout 3, that would be fantastic. I don't know if that could work or not. Let's see here. Double asterisks. Biggest question is dog meat being a blue healer or a German shepherd? Kaiser Soze says, so there will be a lot of bugs and microtransactions to get to the next episode?
Yeah, if you want to see the second half of this episode, please pay us $4.
Want to see it in color?
Yeah, if you want to see the heavy armor in blue, you got to pay us $10.
Yeah. See the Brotherhood of Steel change their armor style. Dump a quarter into your TV screen now. All right. we'll move on from that just because there's a lot more to get to.
Well, the news coming out. There's been a leak. It showed up on Reddit. We don't know how accurate this is, but it is interesting to note, and is interesting to look at the concept, the concepts and ideas behind it, and that is that the Bethesda is going to be holding some kind of an event on the 11th of this month.
Ooh.
So this is the rumor. So it's a rumor.
Yeah.
And they're going to be covering Deathloop, Ghostwire, Elder Scrolls Greymore, ESO Community Spotlight, future of ESO, Fallout 76 Community Spotlight, new Fallout 76 content announcement, which is due, future Fallout 76, Doom Eternal, huge expansion announcement, the refit on the Commander Keen game, because of, as you remember, Commander Keen was announced and it was an atrocious pile of garbage, and everybody in the community agreed so, and they basically took this back and completely rebuilt it from the ground up, apparently, is the rumor, and then a Starfield teaser with 4K gameplay. That's the rumor, and I can tell you that almost all of this stuff is slated for the regular content announcements. Like all of this stuff, like Greymore, the 76 content, the Doom stuff, all of this stuff was in the works. All of this stuff was in the works. So it all lines up. Whether or not we actually get it, we won't know just yet. But this is something to kind of keep your eye on. Todd Howard really does like doing surprises, and if they could just put this out there with very little fanfare, just go boom, and then maybe even like announce some release dates for this content, I mean, this would kind of go far, right?
Yeah.
76 is a much better game now that they added NPCs. It is not the burning, garbage dump of garbage that we were used to. It is by far perfect. It is by far
You mean far from perfect.
Something that it's far from perfect. It still has, obviously it's an insult to people who wanted something different. Still, but it's not horrendous anymore. It's like decent. So
okay. Yeah.
I would again, you don't have to play the game. You don't have to like the game, but at this point, everything that they've done, everything that I've experienced in it, I've got to say quite clearly that it's not a bad game anymore. It's not a great game. It's barely a good game. It's kind of like really, really on the lower end of like good game versus like, yeah, it's okay. And if you're really like a big fan of the lore, they are expanding on it. They're expanding on it now, sticking to more of that actual, like the actual important lore. And they're trying, and they're finding ways to like correct what you have in the game. And all of that stuff to me is very, very beneficial. Like I'm looking at all of that stuff, nodding my head going, yeah, that's all fair.
Paulie's 911, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. He says, Fallout TV has huge potential, but I'm afraid they'll go the safe route. They will make the Enclave the bad guys, and the Brotherhood of Steel will be the generic good guys poster boys again. I want the show to be set in a new state and new lore. Well, thank you for your comments on that. Yes, and thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that. All right, folks, you are listening to the Augmented Reality Podcast, and we love seeing the conversation in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S community members about all the things we love to talk about. It's a great place to connect with people who have the same hobbies and interests as you. There's in-server streaming happening all the time now. Like not literally every minute, but there's lots of people streaming games into the server and then hanging out in the voice rooms, people talking with each other. It's been great. It's been fantastic. It's just exploded recently, and we love it. So join up if you haven't already. Check it out. You can lurk in the background, or you can jump in on the conversations, whatever you want to do. Be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel, though, so we can welcome you to the server. All right, we're an hour in. For those of you who have been waiting patiently for the Cyberpunk stuff, we're going to get to that right now, actually. We'll get to that right now. Max has been waiting patiently for the Cyberpunk stuff. Yeah, we put it to the end so that you couldn't leave. No, just kidding. Okay, so there's been a lot of discussion online and in person and etc. A lot of discussion about features looking like they're being removed from Cyberpunk 2077. We're going to dig into this because there's a list of things that are predominantly being talked about. Some of them are looking like features that we've seen in in promo material that are no longer in the game. Some of them not so much. So we're going to try to separate fact from fiction as much as possible. On some of these points, we don't have full information, and we only have reports from people who've played the game, and which is very few and far between at this point. But we're going to jump into this as much as possible, and I'm just going to list them, and then I'm going to just drop a couple of thoughts, and then we'll get into talking about each of these points here. But the main things that people have concerns about are wall running, car customization, the subway/metro system, the flathead robot, and the techie skills /class. Now that Cyberpunk is not going to have set classes, but you do have a few somewhat overlapping skill trees that so that they don't lock you into a class, but there are different areas of skill sets that you can plunk points into, and techie's one of them. And some people were saying the techie skills are being removed. Now, just to not leave you hanging on that, they're really not. We'll get into the nuance of that. But I just want to say first off that I was thinking about this last night, and we have a case where there's this game that we've been anticipating for 7 years now. For some people, their lives have changed significantly in that time. And we're always bugging CDPR. Show us more, show us more, show us more. So they show us more, and they warn us, okay, this might not exactly be what it looks like in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm seeing a lot of discouragement and some people losing excitement because things they liked that either were shown or that they thought would be in the game aren't going to be. And I mean, I'm not going to tell you it's wrong to feel disappointed. You can feel how you feel about it. I just think we need to be conscious of the kind of, we put all this social pressure on the company to show us stuff, and then and they warn us it might change, but then then it changes, and is it really fair for us to sit back and say, well, that's not fair? Like, is it really fair for us to sit back and criticize them for that? When they warned us it might change. It's just something that I think that we need to think about and be cognizant of. I think that we need to be careful we're not playing into the hands of the media types who want to call us entitled when we do stuff like that. So just something to think about. They did warn us that some of this might change. Now, that some of these things were never promised and were never shown to begin with. Some of it was assumption. But there are some things that have been taken out that we have seen. So we'll kind of break these down one by one.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to address the again, I just kind of want to quickly add to what you were saying. It's like there was a lot of things that were announced or like kind of like put out and like saying that in a couple of these cases, they never said, oh yes, this will for sure be in the game. They said, oh, we'd like to add this to the game. And people lost their minds when they hear that those things aren't in the game anymore. It's like, calm down. This isn't what was promised. So we're going to kind of go through some of these things.
Well, it does go to show that, from CDPR's perspective too, it's risky to say stuff like that. It's risky to say, hey, we'd love to do this. People are going to take that and run with it and be like, oh, this game's going to have this. And then it doesn't have that and they're disappointed. I think it's important to remember that all signs are pointing to the fact that Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be what they promised the core of the game would be, which is a massive story-driven RPG. That is what it's going to be, set in the Cyberpunk world. really connected deep with Cyberpunk lore. So it's going to be all that. As far as the actual gameplay features is mostly what we're talking about here.
Yeah, guys, please don't complain too much about whether or not there's car customization. Because if they're like, "Oh, we need car customization, we need another 2 months on the game, and then it's delayed until 2021," I'm gonna snap somebody in half with my bare hand. Feel me? So just shh. It's okay. It'll be awesome. Sorry.
Yeah.
So let's kind of hit these one at a time here.
I'm being facetious, by the way. Just relax.
I know. So so let's cover wall running. Wall running was kind of talked about here and there as like something that they were hoping to implement. That it was kind of like a sort of a thing. This is one of these things where it's like I heard about this and I was like, meh. like my first reaction, they're like, we have wall running. I'm like, meh. And then like people are like, why is it wall running in the game? I'm like, why is this important? Like, you can we know that you can jump and hold on to walls. That's still in, like climbing on walls and stuff.
I was going to ask, is that still? Because I think this comes from the 48 minutes of gameplay, I believe, is where it comes from. Where you have that one scene of the character clinging to the wall with the mantis blades. Is that feature still in?
As far as I know, that's still in. It's just wall running isn't in because it's a completely different mechanic.
All right.
Like a completely different mechanic. Like how you implement that into the code is two completely different things. So yeah, I think like you remember again, one of our favorite games to bring up on the podcast is you remember the wall running that you could do in Outcast and Academy, Jedi Knight Academy, right? It's like most of the time that was hard to pull off and it didn't actually help you. Like I remember so many times is like I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna like run up to the wall. I've been trying it all match. Finally get up on the wall. I'm wall running, and Ash shoots me down with a single blaster rifle. It's like
because I knew you were gonna do that because you were always trying to do that.
Yeah, and turns out that wall running not actually as cool as some people think it is. Like it's cool to do it yourself. It's not actually that great when you're playing most games don't feature it because it's not actually like it's cool for a handful of people, but gameplay wise it's kind of a dumb mechanic because like why do you run from cover to cover? To not get shot. What happens when you run on a wall? You're really visible to pretty much everybody. Well, I mean, just from a strategic point of view.
I mean, I disagree that it's. I agree it's not a great combat mechanic, but as far as a movability mechanic to get to hard to reach places, definitely. I do like wall running where it's been implemented in some games, like Jedi Fallen Order and Prince of Persia, games like that, where it's used where you have to figure out. How do I get up? How do I get to a certain place? How do I get maybe to a secret overhang where I can snipe people from? I think it could be cool there, but it is difficult to implement. In most games now, they have special walls you can run on, and they're identified by ridges or paint or something. It's like, oh, that's a runnable wall, and so maybe they didn't want to do that in Cyberpunk.
No, I hate that. I pointed that out about that whole that one gameplay demo that they put out, or it wasn't a gameplay demo. It was a tech demo showcasing like what they can do in the new system for the PlayStation, and it's like I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, you can climb walls right where there's a bunch of paint saying that you can climb walls. Again, this isn't new technology. This has been around for ages, and I frankly find it kind of stupid.
If you make every wall...
hey, look at this wall. Oh, look, somebody's painted a very clear strip of paint of exactly where I can climb.
That kind of immersion, it's immersion breaking. I see what's necessary technically because to make every wall runnable or every surface climbable, unless you're playing Lego Worlds, in which you can literally in that game. You can ceiling hang, you can wall climb, you can climb anything, you can but if you have a more complex game a complex combat RPG kind of game, you're gonna run into problems. People are gonna get places that they're not supposed to be and break the game. So,
yeah. Polly's again with the super chat. Thank you very, very, very much. CDPR said every time work in progress, it can change. Crybabies who are getting mad about unfinished products that can change before release is stupid. If people don't like it, don't pre-order. Wait for reviews, but don't cry like children. Don't cry like a child. That again, that's Polly's, and yes, I'm going to give him a slight hand clap there because this is pretty well said. It's people who are like expecting this stuff, and we've gone over like why they may or may not have this stuff. So let's go on to the next one here, which is the subway metro system. This one, I understand why some people are upset about this one, but again, this was never promised. This was only shown in the gameplay trailer.
Yeah, it was a cinematic trailer, and
yeah.
I think that there were some conclusions jumped to in the sense that we'll be able to ride the metro in the the game and see the city as we're riding, which I'm fully on board that would be super awesome.
Mm-hmm. But it's also really pointless, and it's like flight paths.
The point is to be awesome, right?
Yeah, but it's like flight paths in any other game where it's like you get in the flight path and you take the flight path. The first 2 times that you see it, you're like, wow, this is so cool. Every time after that, you're like, oh my god, can this go faster? Every time in World of Warcraft, this happens every single time. They have the initial flight points. And the initial flight points from flying from one major city to this other major city is like 5 minutes. And you sit there and you watch it and you're like, wow, this is so cool. The first time you go on it, the second time you go on it, and you're like, oh, cool. Third time you go on it, you're like, oh my God, this is taking so long. Oh my God, okay, time to go to the bathroom, grab a drink of water. You come back, and because you came back 30 seconds too late, your character's dead because somebody assassinated them while you were out there. And you're like, what the and you hate it. And then you get your own flying skill, and then you fly around as much as you want. And it's just like again and again and again and again and again and again. Look, this is not, this is stuff that people don't like after a certain number of times.
Well, if you're forced to sit
to be
through
a fast travel system, and
but
again, I mean, so I kind of.
Sorry, I'll let you finish, and then I'll respond.
So I kind of look at this and I go, why on earth is so many people upset about this when there's not really a point to this thing anyways? It's not like you can, at no point did they suggest that there was going to be a quest system, or you could like do stuff inside the cab, or like walk around. Like it would probably be like really, really crowded, or it would be really empty depending on the tech that they were using, and it wouldn't make sense, and it would just be kind of like bleh, and you would get bleh after a certain point. And all of the twitchy young kids out there would kind of get to the point where they just go crazy and they just start shooting everything up, which means that they have to load the game because by the time they get out, Max Tack's waiting for them and kills them, and then it's like, oh, back to the start, and it's like, oh, you got to go do the whole thing over again. And it's like, okay, now in order to get where you're going, you have to hop on 2 subways.
Okay.
But it's a mechanic that falls apart in the concept of implementation.
If you are forced to sit through it, then yes, agreed. But if it's like an optional thing, like, hey, you can sit and watch this, just see the cityscape.
That's not how it was. That's not how. And this is a trap. So this is a trap. You have a bunch of people saying that, oh, we'll just make it optional. Immediately, you have another group of people who are like, I was told there was going to be no loading screens in here. The fact that I have to now click on a thing and say fast travel, and it takes me through a few seconds of a loading screen in order to put me out there, that's them breaking their promise, and I'm going to boycott the game because they broke their promise about fast travel system and blah, blah, and it's a 0-win scenario. So again, it's one of these scenarios where it's like, I don't even understand why they even gave the illusion that it might be an option, which again, I don't remember
think they
ever
did.
actually coming out and saying that this was an actual thing that was going to happen.
No, it was in the gameplay trailer, or not gameplay trailer. It was in the cinematic trailer, and it was a very cool reveal shot of Night City. I mean, I think it would be cool to have that in the game as an optional thing if you want to just watch the city go by, or if you want to just fast travel to the next metro point, I think that that would be cool too. But
Sure.
yeah, so Max, go ahead and get your thoughts in here.
Sure. Just like tennis in Grand Theft Auto 5. But who the hell plays tennis in Grand Theft Auto 5? Look, the vast majority of people, when it comes to open world games, what do? They fast travel if the option is available to them. That's what I do when I'm playing Skyrim. That's what I'm doing when I'm playing Fallout. That's what I'm doing when I'm playing Grand Theft Auto, actually, when I get inside the taxi and it gives you the option to skip the drive, right? That's what I do. And look, I understand, like Ash said, if the option is there, it's cool. It's fine. It's a great addition. But is it going to affect the core enjoyment of the game? What is Cyberpunk 2077 going to be about? It's going to be a first-person RPG that's centered around having a great story and great, stealth and level up mechanics and stuff like that. As long as they get that right, then everything else is just window dressing for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is gravy at that point. So yeah, no, I look at this and I go, I don't see a problem here for this one. Now, like some people are saying, well, they were promising like a big metro, like underground system of like, underground stuff, and I'm like,
did they?
Well, they showed a metro map.
I don't ever recall that.
Like,
I don't
know. You're right. They didn't promise, but they showed the map, and again, I think maybe some wrong conclusions were drawn based on the metro map. Yeah.
And so again, so far we have two things that are kind of like like most of us are looking around and like I don't think none of these features make or break the game, like not even in the slightest. So the next one though is a little bit more contested, and that's car customization. Right. And people are really upset that car customization is not going to be in the game. That you're going to have a whole bunch of different cars that you can steal, but you can't take it to a shop, rotate out the wheels, change the overall like external parts of the car, add a couple of like flame jets to it, give it a suspension rig, and then like what do you think this game is? This isn't Need for Speed. Where did this again? We have been cautioning against this from the beginning of like, don't expect car customization in here. There's a good chance that it's just not in the cards for the engine that they've built. Period. That they may be able to do it in a future expansion, but that is in a complex system that requires a large degree of resources. Because and again, I'll explain it again. When you have a Lego kit car, every single Lego kit car that you have on the map is going to increase the resources needed to run that car by like 30, 40, sometimes 200%. It is absolutely not an easy thing to implement when the car system is not designed off of that Lego system.
It's one thing when you're playing a racing game where
right.
You don't even have that kind of car customization in GTA. Like I think you can. It's been a while since I played.
Yeah, there is like compared to most racing games like Need for Speed and Gran Turismo, GTA doesn't have that level, but it does have a decent level of customization.
Yeah, right. But it's also been out for how long?
Yeah, 7 years.
But that's the point. A huge amount of the point of GTA is the cars. And the game centers around the cars and driving. It's like GTA does not have a lot of the combat mechanics that Cyberpunk's going to have. That's just not the central focus of the game.
Yeah, what I said originally about the wall running in the subway. Yeah, in regards to how it affects the core gameplay, I sort of somewhat pass it over to the car customization. I don't think it's that big of a deal that it's not in there, but I do understand why some people would say, that's a little bit disappointing, because from what I've seen in regards to Cyberpunk 2077, one of the big appeals of it is just the ability to customize your character however you want. People are going crazy over the fact that you can customize certain parts of your character into making it look however the way you want, and being able to extend that wherever you can into the game, I imagine would be welcomed. And if you're going to be spending a lot of your time getting to different parts of the city, it would make sense wanting to implement that into your car. And like I just said, not like this world-changing thing that's like a terrible thing, But I can understand why people would be like, I'd really like it if they'd include that in a future expansion.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to even be able to change maybe your paint color or some simple things like that. But again, yeah, that's additional work they have to put into the game, and I mean, we've already got it delayed twice. I mean,
Right.
Yes.
but
So-
again, it was another one of these features that was never promised. It was talked about like, oh, we'd like to have this, but it wasn't promised. So we need to be careful of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one was techie skills. This one is this one's a little it's a little more complex. I'm kind of sad that we don't have a bunch of the classes. Like we don't have media, we don't have rocker boy, we don't have like this stuff. We know that these classes will be in the game represented in other characters, but your main character has the 3 paths and that's about it. And you'll be able to mix and match a number of things from different experiences and different stuff. And a lot of the techie skills have actually just been moved over into net running. So that this I personally think most of those skills are going to be still there. They're just going to be under a new name. And as much as I dislike that, as much as I kind of want, I favor a class system. I favor a flexible class system where you pick your class and then you can like mix and match stuff in it. I really like the way that Rift did their classes, where it was just really complex. You could really kind of mix and match your own. I thought that was great, but at your core, you were always kind of like the same thing. I don't like systems where you can just like, hey, I'm a warrior. Now I'm a cleric. Now I'm an arrow shooting, archer. It's like, I actually don't like that because I feel that there's some sense of like being able to like retain the thing that you are at the beginning. And that has always like, that class system of like, rogue, thief, warrior, oh, I think I put 2 in there together. Paladin, caster, that kind of stuff. Like those are things that I actually like enjoy in games, and I don't want them to remove classes, but I also understand that they're telling a particular story with this one. And to me, so long as in the future that we get some of these other classes and they are implemented more along the lines of the pen and paper, I'm fine. Again, I'm a little disappointed in this one, but it was also known beforehand, where they said, yeah, we're kind of combining a lot of the techie into like the netrunner stuff. And I'm like, okay. But other people are like, they're really insulted by this. And again, I understand from the class perspective of like wanting to play your class. But in this case, it's like kind of like, what can you do? I think it's fine. And I don't think they lied. This was not something that they lied about. This is something that they let us know about, like kind of early on, is like, yeah, techie have been implemented more into the net running role. And a little bit of
what I have read online about it is that they were finding there was a lot of duplication.
Yeah.
And so it made sense to kind of roll them in, and maybe we'll see, maybe then they flesh out the tree with stuff we haven't seen yet or haven't heard about yet. You never know. But yeah, like with both, for example, both techie and net running involve hacking things. And do you really want to, have 2 distinct classes of things that can be hacked by 2 distinct skills? I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where we'll have to get our hands on the game to really know what it looks like. But the final one on the list is related to the techie, and that's the flathead robot, the spider bot.
Now this is the most serious one because they showed that off fairly early on, and clearly the tech is going to be in the game at some point. It may not just be turned on or activated for the most part. This is something that I can see the modders really getting into down the road. So this is something where I'm kind of like, I'm sitting back, I'm like, oh, that's too bad. But on the other hand, this is really going to allow the community to like come up with some solutions to this, I personally think. And so I was never looking forward to playing with the robot. I would like, instead of having the flathead spider bot, I would prefer to have like a little tiny like octopusy guy who hangs out on like my hat or my shoulder or something like that. That would be far cooler. They could just like go into things and then control them. That would just be cool.
So wait, an octopusy, is that a creature with 8? Never mind. So
damn it,
really
you took my joke.
Like a
really sorry,
small,
Max. I just
This is a reference from my book, by the way. I'm just
you got octopus.
I realize that time being left, so she's probably the only one who would get that, and now it kind of gone over everybody's head. Nice. So no, I think just honestly, it's I'm sad to see it go. I'm not overly surprised that they had to cut it, and I think we will see a return of the flathead at some point in the future, of more pets and more companions for sure. Like they put a lot of work into this, and I think going forward we're going to see this kind of return of stuff, just not at launch, and that I do understand how that sucks. So out of all of the complaints, this is the only one that I really can nod my head and go, yeah, that kind of sucks.
I want to clarify. So from what we understand, now this is one of those areas where we don't have complete information. So, please bear with us if something about this turns out to not entirely be accurate. But from what we understand is the Spider-Bot's no longer available as a companion, like as a little dude that skitters along with you that you can take and use in missions and stuff. But that the Spider-Bot will still be part of that mission where we've seen him, where you have to acquire it and then that kind of a thing. So it'll still be there from a story perspective, just not as a companion perspective. That's what we understand now. That could be not entirely accurate. We're just pulling information from a variety of different sources and trying to tie it together. So it's a little tricky at times. But yeah, those are the major things that people are talking about, and some of them. So again, just to recap, a lot of them were things that were never actually promised or shown, and that maybe were hinted at by devs that we'd like to put this in, but not. Then they eventually decided down the road they're not going to put it in. Some of them are things like the Flathead Bot Companion. Yes, they were shown and promised and then dropped. And then things like the techie skills, yes, it's changing somewhat, but you've got to kind of you got to take into account like it's more complex than just is it in or out. Things can change form, and it looks like that's what's happening. The techie skills might be getting rolled into net running, and again, we've got sparse information on that, but that's what it sounds like right now. So yeah. There we go.
Could sacrifice all 5 of those things just to get the ability to have a flying car and fly around Night City. I would happily do that.
Yes, well, there are flying cars. It looks like they're gonna be on set paths, but that there is one. We do have some footage of, from inside a flying car as it comes in. You see the city as you fly over it, so that might be a nice kind of analog to what people wanted from the metro system. You might be able to ride in some flying cars with some set flight paths and see the city down below. Maybe not for a long stretch, but for a short stretch at least. And again,
that's what the modding community is there for.
Oh, I'm sure somebody will make a car where you can just rocket across the city, and it'll probably break the game somehow. But
it better be in the shape of a DeLorean.
Oh, thanks, Max. Now I want a DeLorean in Cyberpunk.
Yes.
A time-traveling DeLorean. If I hit 88, I better be shooting back in time to an earlier...
2020.
To 2020, yeah, exactly. Get on that, mod community. Get on that. That won't take years of your life to make. Nope. All right. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
Just I wanted to throw out that quite possibly one of the greatest television shows in history are now coming back. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Clone High is reportedly coming back. We may or may not see the return of Gandhi, however. So this is interesting. I, for one, am very curious to see where Abraham Lincoln and Joan of Arc left off. And whether or not we're going to see a Cleopatra and a young JFK return to glory or redemption. We don't really know. And yes, this is very interesting. I am very excited to see where this goes from here. So,
Max, are you familiar with Clone High?
Oh, no, I don't know. What is it?
It's a TV show from it's like 18 years ago. They had one season, and it was amazing. And it's an animated show from Phil Lord and what's his name? Something Miller.
Chris Miller?
Chris Miller. So like a duo that you probably are familiar with. It had Will Forte as Abraham Lincoln, and I don't remember. It's got a bunch of actors that you would recognize, but kind of before their prime in the industry. It was just something glorious. Now it was incredibly irreverent and not at all politically correct, which is part of why it got canceled. Actually, the depiction of the clone of Gandhi is like this party animal, and it was really offensive to a lot of people in India, and which is interesting because the show wasn't even broadcast there, but that had a lot to do with why it was never renewed for a second season, which is why Cy was saying we kind of wonder if we'll see that character back.
Probably not. Not in today's climate.
But
I was really surprised to hear that it was coming back, because I was like, how is this possible? Like,
well, I'm wondering, because it was originally it was a victim of cancel culture, and now it is coming back in the golden age of cancel culture. How are they going to pull that off? But anyway, let's not dive into that. But anyway, if you actually, Max, if you look it up and like watch it and did an analysis of the show or something, I would be all over that. I would eat those videos up. But
sure, dude.
Might not be. I mean, that's a large. I'm not asking you to.
Might be something we could do in the Discord of like watching you react to the show.
I'm not asking you to, because that would be a massive commitment on your part. But I mean, if you, anyway, I'll just leave it there. All right.
Okay.
And with that, I think we'll wrap up the show. So yeah, thank you so much, Max, for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your insights. Really appreciate your being here to banter with. Everybody check out Max Derrat's channel. You can find a link to it in the description below. He does lots of great videos, analyses of video game stories, talk, and a lot of great talk about mental health issues. Definitely recommended. Cyb is a regular guest on his Differently Wired podcast, and definitely recommend you check it out.
And can I just plug one thing very quick?
For sure. Go ahead.
All right, so guys, we're talking about Cyberpunk 2077 and how it's probably going to be like the newest, greatest game of all time. If you guys want to know about one of the primary influences that went into the creation of Cyberpunk 2077's gameplay, I would highly recommend that you look into my video, which I just released yesterday, on a video game called Deus Ex. The first one came out back in 2000. That game is arguably probably the most important game ever made in terms of the type of story that it tells, as well as the game mechanics it introduced. It was very revolutionary for its time. And if you just look at some gameplay footage, or if you watch my video on the game, you'll see just how, you'll immediately see the parallels between that game and what CD Projekt Red are trying to do with Cyberpunk 2077. And your appreciation for the upcoming game will deepen all the more for it. Just want to say that.
Deus Ex, I'm going to check that out. Deus Ex is one of my top 5 games of all time.
Yes.
The original. So good. Yeah, the sequels are decent, but the original Deus Ex, wow. Anyway, thank you everybody for the great conversation in the chat, for supporting the show by listening live or after the fact. Don't forget to slam that like button before you leave if you haven't already. Really appreciate that. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters and our channel members who help to make this content possible. Our big damn heroes on Patreon: Robin, Shua82, Timebean, Schoolamin, and 2 anonymous supporters there at that level. Channel members on YouTube: Mr. Padzernik, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Night City Punk, Terror K, and Somnolence. Also, Polly's 911 for the super chats today. Really appreciate that. Helps us out a lot. It actually does make a significant, like a noticeable difference in what we're able to put out. So thank you. So also check out the Discord server for a great conversation. We also have times and schedules of our live streams. There's a schedule up there right now of the summer gaming events that are going to be taking place over the next couple of months. And if you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, iTunes, or Spotify, or any of those other platforms that this podcast goes to, we appreciate your interactions there as well. And don't forget, you can join the live show on YouTube on Wednesdays and Saturdays and be a part of the live discussion. This podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash. On behalf of Cyb and Max Derrat, thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very soon.